Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Officer Cadet Cooper Collishaw. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Francis Ronald Joseph Fleming. Francis Fleming was born in 1894 in Muswellbrook, New South Wales, to David and Margaret Fleming. Ron, as he was known, attended the local Catholic convent school. After leaving school, he became an ironmonger in the district. He also joined the volunteer military forces, serving in the 14th Infantry at Singleton. In August of 1915, Fleming travelled to Newcastle and volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force. He undertook his initial training before travelling to South Melbourne and joining the reinforcements to the 31st Battalion. Fleming departed from Melbourne in March of 1916 on board the transport ship Arcases and arrived at the Australian Army camps in Egypt in April. Fleming was promoted to the rank of temporary sergeant for the duration of the voyage and training. In June of 1916, he sailed to England, and from there he travelled to France in September. Joining the 31st Battalion in the field, he quickly distinguished himself as a soldier. He was promoted to Lance Corporal in early October and to Corporal later that month. Fleming was detached from his unit to work as an instructor at the 5th Divisional Training Base near the town of Albert in northern France. In March of 1917, Fleming was promoted to sergeant and undertook further training at the Anzac School of Instruction. When he returned to the 31st Battalion, he became the platoon sergeant of number 11 platoon in Charlie Company. In the second half of 1917, British commanders turned their attention to the Flanders region of Western Belgium. Seeking to push the German forces out of this region, the British began a series of large-scale assaults. Fleming had nearly a fortnight's leave in England at the beginning of September. When he returned to his unit, the 31st Battalion was preparing to attack an objective outside the town of Ypres. In late September, the 31st Battalion attacked a small landmark outside Ypres, known as Polygon Wood. For his conduct during this action, the unit's commanding officer later recommended Fleming be mentioned in the dispatches. Fleming had taken charge of his company after its officers had become casualties. The recommendation noted that Fleming's cheerfulness and devotion to duty was a magnificent example to his men, all of whom speak in terms of the highest admiration for him. On the 29th of September 1917, the men of number 11 platoon were lined up in support trenches awaiting a relieving unit. Sergeant Fleming was ordering his men towards the rear at 5-minute intervals in groups of 3 in order to mitigate loss during a German artillery bombardment. A high explosive shell hit the trench he was standing in and killed him instantly, along with several other members of the platoon. Francis Fleming was 23 years old. The battalion achieved its objectives at Polygon Wood, but at high cost. More than 400 men, nearly 2/3 of the unit, were wounded or killed over the course of 3 days. Because the trench was destroyed in the blast, Fleming's body was unrecoverable. With no known grave, his name appears on the Menengate Memorial at Ypres in Belgium, alongside the names of some 54,000 Commonwealth soldiers who were killed in Belgium and have no known grave. 2 of Ron Fleming's older brothers also served in the Australian Imperial Force. Lieutenant David Fleming was awarded the Military Cross for his service with the 19th Battalion and returned to Australia in 1919. Corporal John Fleming served with the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion and returned home in 1919. Sergeant Francis Ronald Joseph Fleming is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Francis Ronald Joseph Fleming, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.